Good evening, Des Moines. Welcome to the Doc N Lefty program here on webcast1live.com, coming to you from the burned building adjacent studios, webcast1live.com. Too soon? I don't think so.
Smell the smoke.
It's really that. We'll talk about that here in a second, folks, but it really is a shame because it happened shortly after. It just well, you know what we're talking about from the area. Anyway, I'm Lefty of Doc N Lefty program, and with me, as always, he's about to announce his renunciation of the conservative wing of the Republican Party, and join me on the socialist communistic left, Dr. Patrick Bertroche. Doc?
Well, we've had this conversation many times before, Blake, where, we talk, and you really are a closet conservative. We're going to go that direction. When we get to talking, you're going to be joining me over here on the wing.
I thought you were going to play along and say April Fools, but apparently,
I haven't done April. You know why I can't do April Fools? Because I'm a psychiatrist. People take me too seriously.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So rats.
That's a good point. I April Fooled one of my clients. I said he was getting out of jail today. That's not true. That's not true, but it is germane to our guests we have in the studio.
Yeah.
From Restore2Vote.com, at least the organization that he started. Tom Criswell is with us today. Tom, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good, and we've got a couple of guests that you said, or at least one guest says is going to call in here.
Yeah,
but we'll see what happens.
With with World War Fighting Championships, he is a note from our super media guru.
Yes.
Jen. We need to come up with a different name for her.
Well, she doesn't like the names that we picked so far. How you been? What'd you do this last week?
I sat around and went up and visited my dad, who hasn't been doing well, but apparently he's doing better now. And so that was a good trip. And I watched all kinds of craziness happen over in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Thousands of people streaming out of Crimea. Thousands. The pictures are really pretty astonishing. Of course, from inside Crimea, you don't get a lot of pictures. It's just outside in this little town called Heneshevsk that you see all these people coming through. Watched some of the Obama spin on Obamacare. I'm just going to say, if it's really 48 million people, you only have another 7 years before they all get signed up. So, they're either going to be penalizing these people that don't have insurance, or they're going to have to keep pushing back the deadline time after time. And it's really turning out to be the disaster that everybody thinks it is. And, that's just, that's what I was watching. That's what I was doing this weekend. So what'd you do?
I didn't do any of that, but I was sort of shocked and dismayed to hear about the Yonkers building's demise here over the weekend. It was right next door to us. So my off-color, tasteless joke at the beginning of the show was in reference to that.
I thought it was pretty. Have you seen it?
It's unbelievable.
It's awful.
Well, and you knew this because you're from the area. And Tom, are you from Des Moines?
Yes, I am.
So you knew this too. I didn't know that. Not being from Des Moines originally, I didn't know that this Yonkers building was the first Yonkers building in the country. I don't know if you guys knew that, but it was the #1 first Yonkers store anywhere in the United States. It was also the first department store anywhere in the United States to have an escalator. Now, those are two facts that Iowans think are very, very interesting, that maybe our folks around the country and around the world don't think are as interesting. But for me, a guy that just really gets really bummed out when historical things sort of pass away or are destroyed by just random acts of chance, it really was a shame. And
it's really a strange thing because there's Bob Knapp, who just got found yesterday in a burned out car. And, he was arrested and was supposed to serve 40 months in jail, something like that, for trying to hide all the asbestos. And of course, back then, all these buildings were practically made of asbestos. So it's hideously expensive to get rid of. You have to have certain hazmat materials. You have to wear, and, you stop and you think, well, hold on. This guy just got out of jail. He stole a car, went and set himself on fire somewhere. That's what it looks like here. And you're like, how does that happen? I mean, to me, in conspiracy theories, you don't just, if you're Bob Knapp, you don't go out, steal a car, and then just go kill yourself.
Or are you suggesting that the two are linked? Because if he was trying to run an insurance scam, it really is a shame that he offed himself.
Well, I think what happened is he's trying to do that before, and, maybe somebody saw it wrong. I don't know. I mean, that's really weird. I mean, Mac thinks he was kidnapped, if you saw Mac's blog or his posts. And then here you go. 2 days after the Yonkers building catches fire, he's gone. And, of course, Yonkers building's filled with asbestos too.
Yeah.
So you wonder, what happened? I mean, it takes a lot to set asbestos on fire, Well,
that's the whole point.
Yeah, that's the whole point. So, it's like, wow, how did all that burn?
Yep.
That's my understanding. They had a bunch of natural gas lines, 1-inch lines going into the place on.
Well, that's
why
just
it got
crazy.
so hot. Yeah,
that's
just nuts.
Yeah, well, those old buildings. Well, Pat, we're gonna probably just start off with our good buddy Tom here, because maybe a cut to your to the fights when they jump in. But anyway, So Tom Criswell is here. Tom, I gotta say, I enjoy you on Facebook. You and I aren't Facebook friends. Through no fault of your own. I just don't do a whole lot of Facebook stuff, to the chagrin of my partner and to our social media marketing expert. But it's hard. It's like pulling teeth with me. But anyway, I like to see you and Doc go back and forth all the time, at least probably 2-3 times a week. And so I know you to be a good liberal Joe, and a voice for freedom, democracy, and tolerance here in the United States. But you're here promoting your organization, Restore to Vote. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is?
Well, first of all, it's not my organization.
Okay.
I was actually recruited to become involved with it. A woman by the name of Tamara Wismiller Harris had actually instigated and saw the need, the actual desperate need for an organization like this to take place. The loopholes that it takes for a returned felon or a returned citizen to society after they've completed the just crippling fines that are usually instituted when they commit a crime, plus the time they served, and then the supervision that they have to go through after they're out. It's just a lot of them throw up their hands at the process. When Vilsack was governor and through Culver, it was automatically restored. Once you'd paid your fines, you're off supervision, you'd return to society, and you don't get off supervision unless you've made an example for yourself and for others that you deserve to be back to be a citizen. Those used to be automatically restored, and now it's a convoluted process that even the governor's office advises you hire a lawyer to do, lest you get thrown out for some not dotting an I or crossing a T, and then some of the costs that you have to take on to provide the documents needed to mail to the governor can be pretty hefty too.
Yeah, well, Tom, I guess what I find interesting about this particular issue is, being a criminal defense lawyer myself, is that you have a number of guys, as you said, who are on paper, as I like to say, and they're paroled or they're on probation or whatever it happens to be, but usually a condition of successful completion of probation or successful completion of parole is the repayment of any restitution that's been ordered. And I know that's the sticking point in the legislature right now, is this restitution issue. So where do you stand on that? Didn't they already have to pay restitution under the Vilsack and Culver administrations?
They actually had to pay their restitution and pay all their fines and complete the full sentence that was they were supposed to serve. And usually that includes several years of parole after release. Just to give you an idea, I was released in 2008. I could have, had I been able to pay off my fines, been discharged in 2009, early 2010. I was actually got my fines paid off and was discharged last October of 2013.
Right.
I had several $1,000s of fines, and that's not uncommon in the system.
It
certainly is not. They didn't suspend any of that for you? Because
we're going to take a quick break right here. Staying tuned. You're listening to Doc N Lefty on webcast1live.com. We're sitting here with Tom. It's not Tom Vilsack.
It's Tom Criswell.
Holy smokes! He said Vilsack earlier. I got that
You wouldn't
stuck
like
in
the
my
comparison.
head. And with Restored to Vote and General Liberal Agitator. We'll be back after the break with that. You're listening to webcast1live.com and Doc N Lefty.
Petrosian Associates, how can I help you? Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Lefty with Doc N Lefty here, coming every single Tuesday. That's once a week for all those folks that don't know the days of the week. From 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., we're here with our guest in the studio, Tom Criswell, who is a member of the organization Restore to Vote. Now, before the break, Tom, you intimated that you were part of the Iowa Department of Corrections penal system as a guest, I would assume. So, what was the... And if you don't feel comfortable talking about it, but I know, like, what were some of the challenges that you faced given the kind of charge that you had?
Okay, I was convicted of several drug offenses, and I was sentenced to 30 years with a mandatory 1/3 in 2004. And as I went through the system, kind of pulled my head out and woke up a little bit and started committing myself to being an active example for the other guys in the prison. And then once I got out, I felt I owed things I'd taken away from society by helping to put back in. So one of the reasons you've mentioned me on Facebook and me and Doc going at it 2 or 3 times a week, part of that is because I was becoming active in the only way that was available to me at that time. And
so are there you able to...
We have a phone call.
We have a phone call.
Oh,
all right.
Goodness. Oh my God, everybody scrambled for a headphone.
We're always very pleased to hear from people on the line here, but it's always kind of a shock to us because we're not really I don't know. We have the same 5 people usually call in, and most of the time they're busy with living their lives.
I'm excited to have anybody call in.
Absolutely. You know? So caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello. Who's this?
Hey, this is T. Scott from the WWFC, World War Fighting Championships. How you doing there?
Hey, we're not doing too bad.
I'm just calling in, man. I heard you guys' show on the radio. I told you I'd call in. I wanted to follow up with you guys, let you know about obviously a couple of new MMA shows that are coming around here in Des Moines. We got one coming up this weekend, of course, the Commit K1 Boxing, I believe one of the first ones ever held in Des Moines, and of course May 31st, which is WWFC 15.
All right. So what's the fight card look like, T. Scott?
Well, I tell you what, man, we got a lot of fights on this K1 boxing bout. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 bouts. We have a flyweight. The main event is actually going to be a middleweight championship bout between Jordan Young and Chen Li. I don't know much about Chen Li, but Jordan Young obviously has fought for the WWFC. He's an up-and-coming middleweight fighter in the MMA scene, but he's also stepping into other ranges and going into K1 boxing.
Yeah, he, I happen to know him personally, and he started out as a little fat kid, and he turned out to be a pretty lethal fighter. Do you think there's any kind of weaknesses in Jordan's game?
You know what? Since I've seen him fight, obviously he's fought in the WWFC for us for a couple of times. Every time I've seen him fight, he's always improved his game. I would say that he's definitely lethal as a stand-up fighter. Not too many people, obviously, you're being a guy that's well over 6 foot. I'm not exactly sure of his exact height, but he's a guy that's very hard to take down. So he's got a great takedown defense. I mean, right now I just don't see anyone really kind of stopping him unless there's someone about the same size as he is in regards to height and reach that he has.
All right. So, and this is going to be going on at Seven Flags Event Center, right?
Yeah. Yep, which is obviously April 5th, which is this Saturday. We got tickets on sale for $15, $25, $35, $40, and of course VIP seating where you get a table for $300.
Wow,
you can definitely go. You can go to our website, thecommitfight.com, and look at our at the fight card, as well as see who's on the card, where to go about getting tickets, and how to place your order for those tickets if you like. Of course, you can purchase tickets at the door if you want, but
this is pretty good entertainment for Des Moines. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is Des Moines' only professional organization that sponsors fights like this all the time.
Yes, we are the only ones that are right now that I know of that is doing K1 boxing. So I'm sure other people have attempted to do it, but I never really followed that scene very often. Now that I'm getting more involved in it, I believe we're the ones that are actually going to lead the pack.
All right. Now, you're going to be announcing this week, right?
I'm going to be announcing this one, of course, and of course announcing the WWFC 15, which is obviously May 31st. So I'm going to be announcing both of them.
All right. That sounds good. So how have you been? Everything going all right with you?
You know what? I've been obviously really busy, keeping myself busy. Definitely stay on top of the MMA scene, watching everything that I can, especially about the local fighters, because we obviously have a great base of local fighters that are trying to get up to the big show. And that's the next thing that we're trying to do, no matter what promotion you fight for, is get some of our local fighters up to the big show.
All right. Hey, that sounds good. Thanks for calling in, T. Scott. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. You guys have a good one. Thanks for having me on. You guys have a great night.
All right. Take care. See you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I Lefty. Lefty is an avowed pacifist. So
it is true,
and I always find it funny that pacifist has the word fist in it. You ever think about that?
It's a pretty cool violent coincidence.
Yes, it is. So anyway, yeah, I'm the fight doc down there. I love sitting there watching these guys. It's fun watching them prep themselves. It's fun. Jordan Young is a dynamic fighter. You give this kid another year or so, you're going to start seeing him on TV. He never really loses his composure. And this Chin Lee that they have coming up, I know I've seen this kid before. He's wicked quick. So it'll be a good fight, good title fight this week. So
well, cool. That's very cool. Tom, are you a fight fan at all?
A little bit. I was brought up in the wrestling area, so
right
through
on.
high school and college.
Yeah.
All right.
So we do appreciate is it T or D? T as in Tony.
Tim.
As in Tim. Yeah. So really appreciate T. Scott for calling in. We're going to move back to our conversation about restoring felon voting rights with our guest Tom Criswell. But again, thanks a lot, and make sure that you check out the website. That was
WWFC.com. It's World War Fighting Championship.
Get your tickets as available. It looks like you can get some pretty good tickets
for a pretty
at the door. Low price, $300 for a VIP table. You can't go wrong. But so anyway, Tom. You were in now. Were you always sort of politically inclined even before you kind of got on the wrong side of the law?
No, not really.
Not really. So you became politically active while you were incarcerated.
Well, it gave me it changed my worldview quite a bit on. They talk about I hate to say plight of the inmates because they got themselves there just as I did, but. Some of the conditions and some of the just the hoops and the loopholes and things like that are on both sides. The inmate trying to restore himself to society, and the overwhelming bureaucracy that he gets to face, and often without the social skills or the patience or ability to overcome those things.
Now, so you said you did a hard 10.
No.
You did not?
I did not. I was sentenced to 30 years with a mandatory 1/3.
Okay.
Because of my behavior, and I was involved in several organizations. I don't know if you're familiar with IFI. Used to be in Newton, and they got shut down because of the national lawsuits and stuff like that. But I was involved in that for several years and ended up teaching and mentoring in that organization. Went down to the minimum security and retrained retired thoroughbred racehorses and stuff like that. You had to have exemplary conduct and stuff to be able to be granted that.
Did you go ahead?
Let's take a quick break here. Want to mention some of our sponsors, bradzon.com. He's running for Congress. He's a good conservative, good conservative values. He's running for Congress for the seat that Tom Latham has vacated. At this point, we wish everybody who runs for Congress a lot of luck because, it's a tough road to hoe. But Brad, for me, has always been a good friend of mine. He's been a good friend of the show. And I think people should check him out at bradzahn.com. That's, there you go, bradzahn.com right there on your screen. For those of you without a TV, that's spelled Z-A-U-N is his last name. That I'm just kind of saying that for my mom because sometimes she doesn't get video. We have another sponsor, Des Moines Anesthesia, has jumped back on board.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that.
So yeah, I was glad to hear it. He really wanted to advertise again. Kind of missed hearing his name on the show.
Sure.
You have the doctors here in Des Moines. You also have them in Fort Dodge. They can do pain management. They do a lot of procedures. They can put in pain pumps and things like that. Also, when you're going into surgery, you want people with some experience running the gas. And, there's no better people at anesthesia around here, in my opinion, than Des Moines Anesthesia, and they're pretty good at it. Then we also have, I think that's Halo Capital.
Halo Capital.
Wow. Goodness.
Yeah.
Well, we have, I don't even know what they do. They must be on the website. So go check out docandlefty.com. We also have Facebook, Twitter, the website. Blake and I have been doing blogs. Let me correct. I've been doing blogs. Blake has been sitting around thinking up of ideas.
I have a whole bunch of stuff that's coming soon.
Coming soon?
Promise.
All right.
Within the next couple of days.
Oh, really?
Or maybe next week.
Well,
but definitely before the end of the month.
See, now that's what I love about liberals. They are so decisive, and then they go, I'll just push it back. Push the deadline back. It's all right.
If you can't move the goalposts, you aren't playing the game correctly.
Is that it? All right.
That's it. So anyway, check us out on those different things, and be sure to check out Doc's blog. I didn't read the one that you posted for this week.
It's sheer genius.
I bet it is. But so we're with our guest Tom Criswell. Now, Tom, so you basically got your act together. It sounds like almost immediately. Guys aren't discharged as soon as you were without getting their act together pretty quickly.
Well, actually, technically speaking, 4.5 or 30 years with a mandatory 1/3. Once you enter the doors of prison, that's cut in half.
Yep.
And then it's cut in half again. And the mandatory 1/3 worked out to be 4 and just over 4 years.
Sure.
So, I was released at the first opportunity because of some of the bureaucratic things that went on in prison. I actually could have been out about 6 months sooner, but
sure.
It wasn't because it was just a snafu in the way they were releasing people and stuff.
So, and you were describing some of the things that you did while you were in the system, and you got. What are some of the challenges that you have experienced since? Because I assume that you were paroled, and then you discharged your parole here. You said last year,
right? And like I said, the last several years on parole was simply showing up and saying hi, and paying my fines off. And I was actually, and one of the reasons I believe that I need to give back to society through some sort of contribution. Is that I was uniquely blessed when I got out. I got a guy that took a chance on me in a job and that I had a lot of experience in. I'm in sales, and took a chance on me with they don't hire felons. And so there were some unique blessings that were bestowed upon me that gave me reason that there's something I need to do here to help the others. 9 times out of 10, a convicted felon gets out and he's lucky to get a job at McDonald's, which, as we know, doesn't pay a living wage anyway. And then you've got those fines to pay and all the other,
That's absolutely true. Now you made a comment about personal responsibility earlier in the show, and I know that personal responsibility is one of the big mantras in the Iowa Department of Corrections. It's personal responsibility, taking responsibility for the actions and the consequences and so forth. And that's a big dogmatic axiom on the conservative side.
I was just going to say.
And yet you moved over, towards the not so right side of the political spectrum. So what
with that personal responsibility, as citizens and as members of our community, we also have a responsibility to the others around us also. And I think that's all too often forgotten on the conservative end of things, that we are a community, we are a group, a society that We have to interact. We have to, in some forms, get along to move forward. That's become difficult with the political climate in the last few years.
Well, and I agree with that 100%. And I got to say, Tom, that whenever you hear about folks in your situation or folks who are experiencing maybe even more serious criminal justice problems, you hear about the second chance or the third chance or whatever. And I represent a lot of guys who are a lot younger than you who are already in front of the judge probably for their 6th, 7th time.
I was on that hamster wheel for a while myself.
Sure.
That was not my first dance, so to speak.
So,
part of that is that once you're in that system or in that hamster wheel, so to speak, that we call it a lot, is that it's very difficult, even with the best of intentions, to break away from it. Mm-hmm. Like I said, generally speaking, the guys that go to prison aren't left with a lot of skills as far as jobs are concerned, social skills, cognitive thinking skills that are required to interact with other people and to get along with other people.
All right. So I guess my question is one, I guess my first question out of the chute is, in what way are you trying to give back to the community? The Restored to Vote, or is there something else you're doing?
There's Restored to Vote. I've actually was part of a radio show before in another area. It was called Redefining Safe, and where we did
with Rooster
community active. Yeah, he was the head. Was Paul Harrison and I were actually doing the show. I volunteer. I help mentor guys that are getting out of prison, help find jobs and things like that. But it's with the climate in let's say the 5th Judicial District and some of the other districts around, it makes it difficult to get these guys a break and get them established and stuff. One figure that might impress even you is that 36 states have restored the voting rights once you've completed all the requirements of your sentencing. Right. 2/3 of felons that get their voting rights back stay out.
So it's about a 33% recidivism rate once they get there.
And that's just based on voting. Okay. So
the thing is, I guess my question is you got in trouble, and some significant trouble. Mm-hmm. And when you were in the lifestyle you were in, did you understand that what you were doing would have a penalty for that?
Yes.
All right, but you engaged in this behavior anyway.
Correct.
Well, then I guess my question is going to be, if you can't do the time, why did you do the crime?
Well, I did do the time.
Well, but now
I was doing.
It's a felony, and you know that you lose your voting rights and your rights to a gun. Mm-hmm. So obviously, when you were engaged in this behavior, your right to vote wasn't that important to you, nor owning a gun. I mean, those are the penalties that are exacted when you're a felon. So at the time, it wasn't that important to you. So why is it important now?
I've woke up, so to speak. And a lot of people get caught up in their own worldview and what's going on in their life at the time. For me, I had some tragedies in early life where I just thought the world owed me something. Okay. And it took me growing up and maturing and stuff to realize that really wasn't the case, and that the world didn't owe me anything. But I, in fact, as a citizen or a restored citizen, actually owed my community something.
All right. So you're saying that prison actually was beneficial for you then?
Or at least some sort of wake-up call. And I'm not saying, eliminate prisons by any means. What I'm saying is, once you've done the things that are required of you to do, let's make it a little easier. For instance, when I got out, I had to pay off all my fines to get off supervision. Okay? Now for this, I have to go back and prove I've done that already when the Board of Parole has released me. Don't you think it would be easy to have communication between the governor and the Board of Parole that I've done these things, instead of having to go out and fill out a 9-page stack of paperwork to pay fees to these places to prove I've actually done this? The Board of Parole wouldn't have released me if I hadn't done it.
Well, as a physician, I understand what it's like to deal with BS paperwork all day long. And I get that. But my issue really is, at what point, I'm going to assume you're not a violent criminal.
No.
You didn't get sentenced for violent crimes.
No.
So if somebody is a violent criminal, goes and serves their time, and then gets out, do you believe that they should have their voting rights restored if they were sentenced for a violent crime?
I believe if they get out and have demonstrated an ability to interact in society in a proactive and positive manner, that I believe everybody should get that opportunity.
All right. We're going to have to take a quick break. We'll be back right afterwards. Don't forget to tune in to us every Tuesday from 6:30, 7:30 p.m. Me and Lefty are here on Webcast One, webcast1live.com. And we'll be back right after the break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. You know, I always am kind of amazed at how quickly we breeze through the first half hour, first 40 minutes or whatever of the show, because
when you bask in the intelligence of the right, it's
I was
easy.
about to bestow praise and blessings on our wonderful guest Tom Criswell here, but if you want to be self-serving, narcissistic, that's your business.
Absolutely, that's what psychiatrists are doing.
So here,
now, have you always been a liberal?
No, not really. I started out almost libertarian.
Almost libertarian. Oh my goodness.
There was a lot of.
Well, I'm just wondering how many head injuries it took before you switched over to the liberal side. I mean, that's just one of the things. So Blake acted like you wanted to ask him something, or
oh no. Well, the point that I was going to make, and Tom, I'm sure that you'll want to jump in here, is that our understanding of the criminal justice system is not only retributivist, punishment for wrongdoing and the consequences of actions against society as a whole, but it's also, and this is more recent than within the last 100 years, actually probably within the last 70 years, it's also a rehabilitative process, because we realized that we couldn't be locking people up in prison indefinitely ad infinitum. Now, when I was talking to you about different chances, the hamster wheel and all that kind of stuff, what I was sort of getting at was that there are no second chance only issues in this state. There are no third, fourth. There's an infinite number of chances unless they're going to kill you. If you think about it that way, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's nothing in the state of Iowa that you can do where you will not get a chance to at least live out the rest of your life, even if you're in prison for the rest of your life.
Right.
And so when you're talking about people that don't get it, folks that probably don't, to use conservative language, deserve to have their rights back. That's a lot. That's what a lot of conservatives talk about.
You can't blanketly label that. I mean,
that's how Chip Baltimore characterized it. You don't deserve to have your voting rights back.
Well, let's just take this for instance, okay? You know what the crime is going to be. You know what the penalty is going to be. And how come you don't care about it then?
Is it a lifelong ban then? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well,
it's not a lifelong ban in prison for the crime that he committed.
And in that respect, when I committed my crime, Vilsack was governor.
But when you remove yourself from society, there's a penalty to pay for that.
But then you get your liberty back. See, this is the point that I'm trying to make. Once you do once you are exacted the punishment, the fines, the surcharges, the court costs, everything else and the restitution. I don't know if you had to pay restitution.
Of course.
Probably to the state.
Yes.
So restitution back to the state. So you paid off everything. You're under supervision, which means you had to drop random UAs, I'd imagine. You had to make your appointments on time. You had to get a job.
Keep a job.
Yeah, you can't just have the job. You have to keep it consistently. And if you jump around from job to job, that can be seen as a violation of parole.
That is a violation.
Right. So if you lose your job because, say, and this is
a layoff or something like that.
Right. And you get a new job, that can be seen as a parole violation because they keep strict tabs on you until you're off paper. Now, after you complete all of that, you then have your liberty back. The main thing they can take away from you. except you don't get back your voting rights. And as a conservative, you'd think that you would want nonviolent criminals at least nonviolent criminals to be able to get their firearms rights back.
Well, do you want violent criminals to get their voting rights back?
I have no problem with it.
So, all right. So you have a 33% recidivism rate with getting the vote back. So they go through this process, get their vote back, and violate again. Now they're in prison, they get it taken away again. All that happens is you're on the spinning wheel. Most of the time when people have had multiple charges, Tom's an exception to the rule. And I'm glad for you. I'm happy for you. But most of the time, people like Tom are not like Tom. They go back, they're on that hamster wheel back and forth, back and forth. I deal with kids all the way from the time they're 3, and I'm old enough now to see a bunch of my kids that were criminals then turn into criminals now are sitting in jail. They get out and they re-engage in exactly the same type of behavior that they did. Now, I don't know if it's a problem with rehabilitation because we've done everything I think we can as a society, but there are just some people growing up that are bad. So how do you determine which ones are qualified to be reinstated to either have a weapon, to have the voting rights restored? And that's the question. Maybe that's the question I should ask Tom. Go ahead. How are you going to separate the bad eggs from the good eggs? Because obviously you turned into a good egg.
Well, thank you. Maybe hard boiled, but the disenfranchisement that a lot of criminals have gone through society before they actually commit their crimes or cause them or create an environment for it where it's not worth it for them not to change their ways is part of the problem as society has in general.
So this is blame the society.
No. I'm saying
that's just what you said. You just said,
I didn't get to finish my statement either.
Disenfranchisement. I mean, that's pretty obvious. So go ahead, Tom.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
But as a society, we have somewhat of a responsibility, and that line moves all the time of how much we can do. Like you mentioned, we do all we can to rehabilitate the felons now. Actually, there's very little being done to rehabilitate felons. They're in there and they're wasting away doing their times or hitting the weight yard or walking around the laps around the fence. And that's the extent of their rehabilitation. Now, there are some token things that are done that if you go in on drug charges, you get to go through drug rehabilitation, which is kind of more of a token thing because your exposure to drugs is very minimal in prison, thank the correction system. But there is very little done to help you change your worldview, change your perspective, maybe take a look at what you've done to yourself and to those around you. People get lost in that where they're just pissed off at the world and they don't feel like they're going to get any help anyway, so why bother?
Well, and I can see that point. But again, like Lefty pointed out, there's twofold. This thing is twofold. One is a punishment system, and two is a rehabilitation system. And when you've decided to remove yourself from society, why does society owe you anything to help you reintegrate?
Okay.
I mean, that's really up to you, isn't it?
And I'd have a small issue that you really don't decide to remove yourself from society. It's more like a long sliding scale. Okay,
Based on
you start out
decisions you
doing
make.
one thing, and it kind of snowballs into other things. It's not today I decided to disenfranchise myself from society. It doesn't happen that way, and I think you know that.
But still, it's a series of choices.
It is a series of choices.
People, I don't stick a crack pipe in anybody's mouth. I don't, encourage people to go sell drugs or anything like that. Society makes it known that those are unacceptable. So I guess I get back to, if you, through a series of your own choices, decide to remove yourself from society and not follow societal rules, why does society owe you anything to come back?
Society doesn't necessarily owe me, but it benefits society to do that.
In what way does it benefit
the
society
more
to do that?
participating and active members we have in a society that are being proactive, the better off that society is.
Not all convicts are liberal, Pat.
I'm going to throw this statistic out there because this is a fun statistic I like to shock my Republican friends with. 80% of serial killers vote Republican. So, and I buy that. They're not all liberal. And this, honestly, my issue with Tom is, is not. I mean, today is not the fact that he's liberal, but we do have to stop and go, well, hold on. If you still have a 33% recidivism rate, And that's not
in
much,
36 states.
That's not much better than the regular recidivism rate. I don't see where the motivation is to give those voting rights back.
Well, that particular statistic you took the wrong side of it from the get-go. It benefits us to allow voting rights back because if of the felons that got their voting rights back, 2/3 of them did not go back in. Not just because of their voting rights, not just because they're the recidivism rate, the Department of Corrections would tell you is around 15 to 18%. And that's complete bull. Okay, we all know that.
So why is it complete bull?
Well, because if you're out there on paper, they only count you if you're like more than 2 years out. Or, and a lot of the great majority, because of the disenfranchisement and the difficulties with sustaining yourself once you've put that letter on your back is, hey, I was better off in the joint.
You bet. Now we're going to take a quick break. We're going to read off some. Well, first of all, I need to thank Tom for coming in and defending his positions today. It's kind of spooky coming on the radio, tackling people that don't necessarily agree with you. And as Lefty has pointed out, it's, not very often Tom and I agree about many things. But I do like to show that we can ask hard questions, but fair questions, and have people get along. Don't forget, we have Facebook, Twitter, docandlefty.com, where we have put blogs up there. We'd like to thank Des Moines Anesthesia for sponsoring the show. They have offices here in Des Moines and in Fort Dodge. Hey, Frank, do we have Des Moines Anesthesia's number still up there or no? No? All right. Well, we'll have to get a new one for them. They just jumped on this weekend. Halo
Capital.
Halo Capital. Do you know anything about them?
Angels with your money.
That's probably that's a good tag. You know what? Well, Halo, if you're listening, we're going to write that one for you.
Yes.
It's free of charge, right?
Yeah, because this is a brand new one. I mean, it just popped right on there. That's what
absolutely
Jen had written down. She wants to be called feminist, the feminist.
Though the feminist?
Yeah, I'm thinking, more like Femin from Ukraine.
Oh, sure.
I don't know. She can tell us. I don't. Do you like that name?
The feminist?
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about it.
All right. And then, of course, BradZahn.com. He's running for Congress. He's a good conservative. He's going to need your support in the primary and in the general election. Of course, he's run for this office before, and I think he has a real chance of being successful with this. He is all for less government, lower taxation, and all that. So it's BradZahn.com. We're going to get back to Tom. I kind of hogged the last couple of segments. Lefty, why don't you take it away?
Well, Tom, why don't you explain for our listeners? We haven't gotten into the nuts and bolts of this, and we're almost out of time. But explain for the listeners and the viewers out there exactly what a felon has to do now to get his voting rights back. Okay.
There is an application that has to be filled out specifically to Governor Terry Branstad, and it has 4 pages of requirements to fill out. And then you have to go to 3 or 4 different agencies to obtain records from them at a cost, and some of them hefty. There's costs as much as $125 or so. And at that point, you submit all that paperwork along with a current Iowa criminal history record, the proof that you paid your fines, and you mail it to the governor's legal counsel. And then the governor has to review it. And as I said, if any of that is filled out incorrectly or some way it gets thrown in the trash, and you may not even know that it was rejected. In the year, Tamara started this organization in July of 2013.
Tamara who?
Tamara Wissmiller Harrison.
Okay.
She saw the need for this and started it and contacted me because I was friends with Paul and stuff, and was a returning felon. And if they put the website up on the restoredtovote.com, my face will show up on there. I was an example of the person who had not yet achieved their voting rights back, and I'm still going through that process. In 2013, out of 4,800 ex-returning citizens that completed their whole sentence and paid off their fines, 10 people were restored their rights.
Now, did all of them file all this paperwork?
No, because a lot of them, Matt Schultz, who was doing the fraud cases, they found 5 cases of fraud. In 4 of those people thought they'd had them back.
All right. Well, the bottom line is maybe some people, when they get out, go, well, my voting rights aren't important. I mean, if you're going to go out and lose the right to vote through your own choices, you should have to go through a process to get them back. You went through a process to lose them.
Well, in the United States, we're lucky enough to take a lot of these rights that we get for granted. And once you come to the realization that this is something to be cherished, that can change your whole view. And I can't see anybody denying another citizen the opportunity to embrace those rights and duties.
What's the cost of all this altogether? Do you have a figure?
It can vary depending on how much paperwork is involved and what they have to compile and stuff like that.
So it's different for every felon?
It can be as high as $15 a page. I haven't gotten to that part of it yet. In fact, just last week I got compiled everything that I'm going to have to do and submit to the governor. Like I said, the governor's legal counsel himself advises you hire an attorney. So that could be fairly expensive too.
Absolutely.
We're not cheap, but I got to say, I mean, and we'll just kind of leave this question to the two of you. Maybe you can both can answer. So when you commit a crime and you go to prison, and Tom, you can speak to this. Obviously, are you not? Basically stripped of every single constitutional right that you have. There is no freedom of speech in prison, really, is there?
No.
No. If you were to talk back to a CEO, you'd be in huge trouble, correct?
Correct.
And there's freedom of religious expression to the extent that it's provided for you. And
to some extent,
yes. To some extent, but there is no Fourth Amendment right. There is no Fifth Amendment right. There is no Sixth Amendment right after you've already been...
You don't even have the right of free movement.
Yeah, not even the right of free movement. So, but you get all of those rights back when you discharge your sentence. There is nobody on the street corner now that's telling you, Tom Criswell, with your Facebook account and your Restored to Vote website, that you can't do those things because you're a felon. There's nobody infringing on your right of free speech right now, correct?
Correct.
There's no one that tells you when and where you can go to church or whether or not you should go to church, correct?
Correct.
There is, if the cops wanted to come to your house right now, they'd have to have a warrant, correct?
Correct.
And they'd have to give you your Fifth Amendment and Sixth Amendment Miranda warnings, tell you that you have the right to remain silent, that you have a lawyer there present for all questioning, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, right? Cruel and unusual punishment. Non-excessive bails. You get every single one of those rights back except your Second Amendment rights and your right to vote. And my question to you, we all really understand what the Second Amendment right issue, the danger there for a dangerous felon who has a history of violence with weapons. But what is the harm, Doc, to society by restoring the right to vote when all of those other rights are restored automatically upon leaving prison?
Well, the truth of the matter is, and like I said before, I mean, there's a penalty for things. Whether or not you agree with the penalty is irrelevant. What it is that's the penalty for stepping out of lines of society. When you're trying to enter back into society, you should have to go through a process.
Maine and Vermont would disagree.
What?
Maine and Vermont would disagree.
Well, they're Maine and Vermont. We're talking about Iowa here.
They're nor'easters.
But
you can vote right from prison in Maine and Vermont.
Well, that's how liberals stay in power out there.
There are 36
they have
other
felons
states
voting and everything else. They vote from prison.
And
people that are dead are voting.
Yeah, and conservatives want to keep that.
More. And just by the way, they found more than just 5 people having fraudulent votes. They have found at least 15,000 people that should have been removed from the voting records long ago. And they found, I believe the last time was 18 people up under fraud, at least that should be considered having fraud charges. The problem is when
they only charged 5.
Your attorney general is a Democrat and a liberal. They're not going to follow through on things that are conservative based, just like not challenging Obamacare.
Tom Miller's been the attorney general since 1978. I think he's pretty bipartisan. So
he keeps getting elected, and
I don't know. He's pretty liberal.
I would also
he runs
just
on
point
the
out.
Democratic ticket. I'm going to call that.
I'd also point out, for the 15,000 that you said were struck, and they charged 18 people. That is a complete and total disastrous waste of taxpayer money that Matt Schultz is expecting from the state.
As an officer, you're sitting there advocating not enforcing the law.
Half a
million.
As an
officer of the court, that's what you're advocating.
enforcing the law.
You're an officer of the court.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to uphold the law, and you're sitting here talking about, well, I don't want to uphold this law. It's a waste of money.
Hold on a second.
Talk about waste of money. How about the witch hunts that the Democrats do all the time out in D.C.? Now, unfortunately, we have a break coming up, so we'll be back right after the break.
Boy, I love it. I love it when you throw things out
we are here
without
every
any kind of
Tuesday
evidence to support it. There is absolutely no truth to what you say.
That is not true. It's all true. It's only you.
It's
you
only
live
me.
in some kind of fantasy world. You and Tom over here living it. You better go to a break, Frank.
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertrocheandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertroche and Associates.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We got a couple minutes left here. Tom, some final thoughts about your organization.
Okay. First of all, public opinion polls, just to name something, 80% of people believe that felons should have their voting rights back. That's nationwide. 60% of them believe that they should have their gun rights back. Overall, society gets to dictate what line that each state draws at that point. And overwhelmingly, people think that people deserve the chance to at least vote back. I mean, that's one way we can contribute somewhat inactively as a citizen, but it's a duty as a citizen to vote, not only a right.
All right. So what would you do if you were president of the United States or, dictator of Russia, however you want to go? What would you do to rehabilitate criminals in the system? I mean, what would be the steps you would take would you force them into rehabilitation? Because, a lot of times drug court can force you into rehab and stuff like that.
Only drug court can. You don't have to do a lot of the stuff while you're in prison.
Well, drug court's actually one of the more beneficial things that you can do, because it keeps those nonviolent offenders in the community where they have to deal with their issue, whatever that may be, whether it's the drugs or the alcohol.
What would you do? What would you change about what programs would you add then to the prison system to make people more social when they got out, for lack of a better term?
The first thing I'd add is more community programs, because it's a lot cheaper. It's about 10% of the cost of imprisoning somebody. And for a nonviolent drug offender, as you say, they constitute 60% of the inmates in Iowa right now.
Yeah, and Lefty and I have talked about this.
There's a whole lot of money can be saved when it costs $40,000 a year to house an inmate.
Yeah, because we have violent felons walking the street and drug abusers in jail.
Yep.
And so we've talked about that 100%. So you do more community-based programs. What about the offenders that are in jail? What would you do to help them actually rehabilitate so that they're not screwed when they get out?
Well, there's a lot of different things you can do. In IFI, we had a mentoring program, and where you attached yourselves with other members of that particular IFI community, and we mentored each other on proactive ways to deal with things, and basically pulling your head out, having some faith in things that are more powerful than yourself. There's
what kind of programs would you advocate?
There's schooling.
Is there like a particular program, like construction program, IT programs, all that stuff? Because from when I worked a little bit in the prison system, they had those things available. They had these trade school kind of things set up. Now, my experience is limited, okay? I mean, as a shrink, you don't get to see all the inner workings. But don't they have those kind of things now?
To some extent. Like, you have to, if you go into a prison system and you have not got a diploma or your GED, you're required to do the course to complete a GED. And that's conditional upon your release, that you have to have that completed generally. But the cheapest things are sometimes the best. Giving a guy an exposure to a different way of thinking, a different way of living. Some people, they frankly brought up not able to cope with the life skills they need to get through in society. Some life skills courses and some mentoring, which are very inexpensive things to do and would improve dramatically or lessen the recidivism rates.
So would you make a distinction between violent criminals and nonviolent criminals at that point?
I would not classify it that way. I've got a lot of friends that were violent criminals that had the same change and in perspective and worldview that I had.
Okay.
So at some point you can't categorize; you have to individualize.
All right. So now you said that under Vilsack, people were able to get their voting rights back, and you've mentioned Governor Branstad prominently a couple of times. Is Governor Branstad the one that changed the rules on this?
Yes, he is. He signed Executive Order 70 in his first month in office.
Yep.
Okay. So, all right. Well, we want to thank Tom for showing up. It's restoredtovote.com.
Restoredtovote.com.
All right.
Please, it's on Facebook. Please like the page on Facebook and help me in my journey to restore my voting rights.
All right. You going anywhere, doing anything this week?
I got a gig over at Blue Moon tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Jeez, I'm going to be busy all night.
Hey,
you starting at 9, going to 1?
8 to 11.
8 to 11?
It's an early one. Yeah.
All right. Well, text me. I might come by.
Okay, sounds good.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, especially Tom. We want to thank Tom for showing up tonight.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Usually, liberals really do run scared. If I ask them to show up, they really don't. And what's funny is the same thing happens to conservatives. They lefty asks them to show up, man, they run too. So I always appreciate people showing up to talk about the issues. I want to thank our producer, Frank, a.k.a. Ryan, who does a great job every Tuesday, and Jen, the feminist, Alan, for doing our social media stuff. We're really booming out there.
We are. Speaking of social media, you want to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook is Doc N Lefty at Facebook.com. Twitter is, I think, at Doc N Lefty. DocNLefty.com is almost, I think, completed its facelift, which is good. It had an okay face before, but then it hit by a Mack truck and needed to lift that face back off the bumper.
Then they got cameras, huh?
Yeah. Hey, calm down. We got our sponsors, Des Moines Anesthesia, BradZahn.com, Halo Capital. We really do appreciate them. They are going to help us pay the bills at least for the next couple of days.
That's right. And you can check us out on YouTube. And did we swear during this? I have this feeling we swore.
I don't think so.
No? Good deal.
I didn't catch anything.
Good deal. Well, we got kind of heated. We're all glad you all joined in. See everybody next week.
Cheers.
I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Love both of them.